Okay, listen up here, guys. So, some stuff in terms of the final exam. Okay? First off, you want to have your mark as high as you can before the final exam. If you're still missing assignments, the missing assignment deadline is Friday at 12:30. Okay? Other things to do with the final exam. Make sure you show up a little bit early. Okay? I don't mean 6 a.m. Don't come at 6 a.m. because the doors won't be open. No one will be here. Okay? But make sure that you're here at least for sure by 8:40 because the doors are going to open at 8:45. Okay, so please make sure you're here by a minimum of 8:40. Okay, so that you're not rushed and things like that. All right. Remember, you've probably heard on the announcements every day this week, okay, about the diploma exams that drop off your electronic devices, blah blah blah, in your locker or in the administrator's offices. Just leave them in your locker, okay? Do not bring any electronic device, bag, purse, binder, whatever. You can't bring any of that stuff to the exam. All you can bring to the exam are your calculator, your writing utensils, something to drink, and something to eat, okay? In fact, if you come in with your parka on, you're going to be asked to leave that at the door as well, all right? You cannot, okay? You are not going to finish this exam in less than an hour, so it's not going to be an issue, okay? You can leave. After an hour, you can hand it in and leave. Yes. Okay? Everybody with me so far? Yes. At least is Wednesday morning. Yes. Okay? Wednesday the 22nd. Right? So make sure you have those things, guys. And again, bring several, okay? Like at least 2 pencils, 2 pens, right? So that you've got backups in case a lead breaks or a pen fails or whatever. Okay? It's always good to have some backups there. In regards to the multiple choice and its completion, I'm going to machine score it because I'm tired of all 4 dots shaded in, X'd out, arrows, this one, not this one. I made a mistake, code error, it's this one. The machine don't care. Either the right one is in or more than one is in and it's wrong. Okay? Bring an eraser and erase the incorrect answers on the multiple choice form, please. Okay? Because the machine doesn't care whether it's this one or that one. It only cares whether it's the right one and the only one in the line. Got it? Okay. Bring a brand new pencil with a good eraser or a nylon eraser. Pretty well. Okay, it's got to be pretty well. On that note, I know a few of you like barely color in the circle too. Color in the circle. Otherwise, I've actually had a Scantron sheet go through the machine and get marked as 0. Okay, because the person shaded in so little of the circle that it couldn't detect that they had shaded anything. All right, so make sure, get happy on that. Okay, shade in that circle. All right, make it good and dark. All right, so yeah, little things like that. That they're silly things, but you don't want to lose marks over them, right? How many people like that studying that they do in like the 20 minutes before the test? They love to do that. They think it's so helpful. How many people like to do that? Okay, I'm going to ask you don't. Okay, guys, I've taken like educational psychology, cognitive psychology. It is so unproductive. That last 20 minutes of cramming, does any of that stuff that you put into your brain reach long-term memory? Nope. Here's what happens to the majority of the stuff that's in your short-term memory. After about 2 or 3 minutes, it's gone. Okay? So yes, you're reading all this stuff. It's going into your short-term memory, and you read it 3 minutes later, you go, oh yeah, I still remember that. I'm good. No, but 10 minutes from now, you won't remember it. And here's the sensation you will get on the exam. Oh, I don't remember anything. Oh, I'm so screwed. Okay? That's what happens. That's, people describe, I went blank. That's what happens. That's the sensation of my short-term memory just expired. Okay, my short-term memory just expired, and all that stuff I really wanted to know, I forgot, and now I feel like I don't know anything. Okay, and then you panic. You know what panic does to your long-term memory? It prevents you from accessing it. Okay, Yes, okay? Panic is bad. Okay? Panic is really bad. And I don't want you guys to do anything that might cause you to have a panic reaction in an exam. All right? Because all of that stuff is unproductive. Okay? And here's what happens to those people. Eventually they calm down and they're able to remember some things, but by then they've like tried to work their way through the first page or so of the exam. How well do you think they did on those questions? Downright crappy. Okay? Because all they could think about was their own panic and how they can't remember the stuff that's supposed to be about those first 4 questions that they were cramming about for the last 20 minutes. Okay? And I'm not joking with you here, guys. Honestly, I when I was in university, I used to laugh at people that were outside the exam with their study sheets and they were cramming away, because I knew if I could find them sitting in their seat in 5 minutes, they would be the one who looked like, okay? Just when you come to school and you're here waiting for the exam to start, just stay calm, okay? Talk to your friends a little bit. You can talk about the stuff that's on the test. That's healthy. That's discussion. That's okay. But if you're just trying to cram those last few facts in there, all it's going to do is confuse stuff that's already in your brain. Okay? You're really better off to not do that. Okay? In the long run, you're better off. If you've been studying productively all the way along, you don't need those last 20 minutes of cramming. Okay? You really don't. On the note of if you've been studying all the way along, do that. Okay? Study all the way along. Okay? A little bit each day. Okay? And not in too long of intervals either. Okay? I'm not saying you should sit down for 3 hours at a time and do nothing but study, because that isn't good either. Okay? Your brain does need time to stop and take a break and to process and commit things to long-term memory. Okay? If you're constantly showering it with stuff for 3 hours, 4 hours at a time, it isn't good either. Okay, so like you study for 45 minutes or so, and take 10 or 15 to just go get a drink of water, have a snack, text your friend, whatever. Okay, and then study again. All right, and maybe change the subject every hour. All right, stuff like that. Just little things that will help you to be a little bit more productive when you are using your study time. Okay. The next worst thing you can do prior to that, other than that 20 minutes of cramming, is the all-nighter. If you waited till the night before to study for my test, you might as well get a good night's sleep. Okay? Because staying up all night long, trying to cram all that stuff into your brain and not sleeping is actually worse than just going, I'll take my chances with a fresh good night's sleep. Okay? Really, an all-nighter, take it from me, because I pulled my share and bombed as a result. Okay? The all-nighter is not a good thing. Okay, it really isn't. Because when are you going to crash? Right during the test. Right in the middle of it. That's when you're going to crash. Okay? Even if you had, like a rock star, that's also not good. Please don't do that either. Okay? Because I see those people. They're the people whose desk is shaking. Literally, you laugh, but it's true. They're the ones whose desk is vibrating while they write the test, okay? Because they're just so hopped up on sugar and caffeine, okay, that they just shake. They shake, okay? That isn't a good situation to be in either. It's not good, okay? This is designed for periods of, mental alertness and wakefulness. You're wakeful. I don't know how coherent anything is, okay? But the worst part of that, guys, is the sugar causes a crash as well. You may not have like the I'm going to fall asleep crash, but you get the sugar crash, all right? When that sugar is burned off, now your brain's like, oh man, suddenly I don't think so fast anymore, okay? Because you have the sugar crash, okay? There's just little things, guys, that don't have anything to do with what you read or what you did in terms of questions you answered and stuff, but they're things that can set you up physiologically for success on an exam, and that is a good night's sleep and a good breakfast. Okay? Have some good stuff for breakfast, like the 4 food groups. Okay? Have that for breakfast. Okay? Make sure you have a little of everything. It's important. You laugh, you think it isn't, but it is. Okay? It really is. So do those little things, and they'll help you out quite a bit. All right. Yeah. So on your final exam, Okay, I had told you the other day that I was thinking of having the inside sheet be the periodic table, and when I printed them last night, I changed my mind. So the way it works is this: you have the front page of the exam, and it has the instructions and your name on it and all of that kind of stuff. Okay, and then you open that and you're right into the test. Question 1 is on the back of that. Okay, the very back page of the exam, so after the written response, okay, that's where your multiple choice form is. All right, I put it there for this reason. I told you guys, make sure you do what part first? The written response. So when you're done the written response and you're on the last question, you'll flip it over and there will be your multiple choice form. Now you can take it off of the test and start the multiple choice. Everybody got me? Okay, I figured it kind of made sense to put it there rather than encourage you to do the part I told you to do last first by putting it first. Okay, so I put it last. So that's where you'll find it. Your periodic table and data booklet, or data sheet, sorry, is actually just a separate sheet that I'm tucking inside of the test. Okay, so it won't be stapled on in any way. You'll just have it, and it'll be there, and it's colorized and easy to read. It looks, quite frankly, awesome. Okay. Yes, the formula sheet and the periodic table are on the same page. So you've got a periodic table on one side of the sheet. When you flip it over, there will be a solubility chart and all the formulas and specific heats and whatever that you would need. Okay? So that's the way that'll be set up when you come into the exam. That's where to look for it. If you can't find it, just put up your hand and someone will come over. Okay? All right, questions on layout or anything like that? All right, so remember, on the morning of the test, you go and you look at the whiteboard that'll be outside of the gym. You find out what row you are in. Okay, go to that row and find your test with your name on it and sit down there. Okay, all right. Chemistry. First thing we talked about. Okay, and the first thing we talked about in chemistry was models of the atom and atomic theory. Okay, are the points of the atomic theory important? Yeah, they are. Do you have to memorize them? No. Okay, but like I'm saying, you don't have to memorize them so that you could write them down word for word, because you will not be expected to do that. Okay, you should know them, okay, from a recognition standpoint, and know how they kind of tie into things. All right, especially that, you know, the whole number ratios for compounds, right? You don't ever have half of an atom in a compound and stuff like that. Okay. In terms of the people, again, just read over the names. There's not that many names, okay? And I'm probably only really worried about, you know, the really important guys, you know, like let's say Dalton and Rutherford, okay? You know, because Dalton came up with the idea of the atom. Well, Democritus did, but Dalton's the guy who got it on paper, okay? Rutherford's the one who discovered what? Right, he discovered that there was, right, a nucleus, okay, and that the nucleus was small compared to the rest of the atom, okay. So, it found that it was mostly empty space. So he was the one who discovered the nuclear model, okay, of the atom. So that's kind of important too. All right. So that's kind of what you need to know for that. I would say if there's anything in the chemistry unit that's less important than everything else, it's that. Okay. Naming compounds. Got to be able to do this for a couple of reasons. There's a few multiple choice, not many, that say, you know, what's the proper name for this compound or what's the proper formula for this compound. But more importantly, for writing out chemical reactions. If you can't write out the formulas for a chemical compound, can you hope to write a reaction and balance it properly? No. Okay, so that's why naming compounds and writing their formulas, okay, is so important. It is a essential skill that you must have for the final exam. Okay. All right, so make sure you go over that. Okay, remember that ionic compounds and molecular compounds have slightly different rules, right? Molecular compounds use prefixes. So. Okay, no swap and drop on those because they're both negative. Okay, and then on the ionic ones, Okay, so they're metal, non-metal. Okay, we swap and drop. Okay, no prefixes, obviously. Roman numerals. Okay, on the multivalence. Okay, and don't forget about polyatomic ions as well. Okay, you got lots of worksheets and the keys on my website if you want to just practice a few. Okay, I wouldn't say go over all the worksheets I gave you because you don't really have time for that. Okay, just pick a few at random off of there and see if you can still do them. Okay, if you can't, then you probably need to spend a little bit of time reviewing that. If you can, you're good. Move on. All right. Okay. Okay, properties of compounds, not as heavily weighted as it was on the unit exam, but there's probably still a few multiple choice questions about it. Okay, remember we did that lab where we had to identify the unknowns, okay, and figure out what they were based on whether their solutions conducted electricity, they were soluble, were they a crystalline solid, or were they, you know, waxy or whatever. Okay, that kind of stuff, pH, all of that. So just kind of go over that. Maybe have a look at your lab, read the analysis questions on your lab a little bit to refresh your memory on that, and okay, and then you're probably good. All right. Okay, reactions. Probably the bulk of the marks. Between reactions and the mole equation, that's the bulk of the marks in on the final exam for chemistry. Okay, so reactions, you need to be able to identify types. Okay, got to be able to identify types. Okay, predict, write. There's no G in write. Not the kind of write I'm writing. That kind of write. Okay, predict, write, balance. Okay, got to be able to do all of those things just like we did in the chemistry unit. Okay, remember there's the 5 kinds of reactions, right? Synthesis, decomp, okay, single replacement, double replacement, and combustion. Okay, remember combustion had its own set of balancing rules. Okay, that you balance alphabetically, and that if you have an even number of carbons, you start with 2. Okay, little things that you'll need to read over. Obviously, you've probably forgotten a lot of that stuff, and that's okay. Okay, but it'll come back to you. Okay, so like I said, there's quite a bit. This is what the exam starts with. The written response, at least, starts with the reactions. Right, and asks you to do balancing, and then asks you to write some reactions, and then it asks you to predict some reactions. Okay, so you are going to have to do that. You may also have to write some in words. Okay, things like that. So be ready for that. You're definitely going to need to know that. On that note, make sure you read the questions. If they're a 4-mark question, make sure you're doing all the things to get all 4 marks. Okay, like if it says, you know, in this question, identify the type of reaction, write the reactants and products, and balance. That's 4 marks. If you forget to identify the type and you get everything else right, you only get 3 out of 4. Okay, so make sure you do everything the question asks for. Again, that's why not a bad idea to bring a highlighter. Okay, quickly highlight the things the question wants you to do so that you don't forget any of them. All right. What are we on here? 5. Solubility. And the polar nature of water. Okay, so solubility and the polar nature of water. Okay, you're going to have to use your solubility chart. I have a couple of questions where I give you like a reaction and ask you which of the products are soluble. Or if you recall on your unit exam, you had that question that said there's a toxin in the water supply. How would you get it out? Okay, and you had to do a double replacement reaction that produced something insoluble, and you had to say what you would add. Okay, you know, expect probably similar lines of thinking on the final exam. Okay, polar nature of water. Okay, remember what a polar molecule is. The electrons aren't shared equally, and so we got to make sure that we understand what that is, and that can cause adhesion, cohesion, okay, and things like that. Okay, that helps obviously. It goes into the bio unit where plants are transporting water. That plays a role with that as well. Okay, everybody remembering that one? Okay, so not a bad idea to just take a quick perusal over lesson 7 from unit 1. Okay. Sorry, lesson 8 from unit 1. Okay, was this, and you go over it and just quickly read the notes. Okay, and then mole equation. Okay, N equals little m over big M. N, number of moles. M, little m, mass in grams. Big M, molar mass. Which one will you always have? Big M, because you will have a periodic table. All right, remember that big M, the molar mass, is the one you can calculate by adding all the individual masses of the elements together. All right, so let's say you have, I don't know, let's say sodium oxide. Okay, so let's say you have that compound. All right, if I want to calculate the molar mass of that, okay, the molar mass of sodium is 22.99, and how many are there? 2. Okay, plus 1 oxygen. Okay, and I've got my molar mass. Everybody, is that ringing a bell? Okay, now remember the questions could be, okay, in fact you've got a whole bunch of solved examples. Not a bad idea to watch the podcast of the mole equation lesson, or one of the ones thereafter, because each day for like 3 days I solve 4 examples of how I can ask the mole equation questions. So those might be one worth taking a quick gander at, okay, while you're studying. I'm not saying watch the whole lesson. Don't do that, okay? But the podcasts are a great studying tool if you've forgotten how to do something. Just scroll through the podcast until you get to the part where I'm doing that kind of question, okay, and watch it. All right? There's nothing saying you have to watch the whole thing. All right? Just scroll through until you get to the right part and watch that, okay? They're great for that. Little m, mass in grams. Okay, so a question might say to you, what's the mass of 2 moles of sodium oxide? Okay, so you would have to solve for m, and you'd have to manipulate, okay, by multiplying big M by both sides. The only tricks, remember, were if the question asked you to calculate the number of particles, okay, or conversely gave you the number of particles. If they do, then you have to use what number? You have to use Avogadro's number. Okay, Avogadro's number, 6.02 times 10 to the 23. That's the number of particles in a mole. All right. So if the question asks you how many particles are in, 40 grams, well, you'd find the number of moles, and then you could multiply by Avogadro's number, and you'd be able to find the number of particles then. Right. That's right. Okay. There's, I think, 2. There's 2 mole equation questions, but they're 4 marks each. There might be 3. I can't remember now. It's all starting to blur together. Okay. But there's definitely mole equation questions on there, so make sure you know how to do them. Okay. That's Okay, that's pretty much it for chemistry. And I'm glazing over that a little bit, but those are the really important things. Okay, obviously, there could be a multiple choice question here or there on something else, but okay, those are the big things for sure from chem. Okay. First thing we talked about in biology was the cell theory. Okay? All organisms are made up of cells. Cells carry out basic functions of the organism. Cells reproduce by splitting in half. They are not produced anywhere. Okay? So those are the 3 points of the cell theory. Remember that the second point of the cell theory was the one that came up over and over again. Okay? Especially when we got to things like the effective surface area and volume ratios on the functioning of a cell. Okay? If a cell got too big, it couldn't carry out the basic functions like intracellular transport anymore, blah, blah. Okay? So remember that those points of the cell theory do come back here and there. All right? So I would say understand what the cell theory is, you're not going to be asked to write down the 3 points of the cell theory, okay? But it's important to know them. Okay. The people involved, I would say if you had a couple of minutes, just because you absolutely knew everything else down pat, you could look over the names. Okay, but it's not really that important. All right. Then after that, we talked about the modes of nutrition. Okay, we also talked about microscopes and how to use the microscope. We did all that stuff too. But okay, modes of nutrition. What were they? Chemoheterotroph is one. Photoautotroph is the other. Right. Okay. So remember that those were important because they determine the structure of the cell. Okay. Chemoheterotrophs needed to have certain structures like lysosomes, okay, and centrioles, okay, and things like that. Whereas photoautotrophs needed cell walls. Okay, and they needed chloroplasts. Okay, there are a few other things, but you get the idea. Okay, the big thing there is that the mode of nutrition determines the structure of the cell. Okay, and that's an important thing to understand because it ties back into cells carry out the basic functions of an organism. Okay. All right, and then logically, after modes of nutrition and talking about these things here, what a cell would require, we talked about the parts of the cell. Okay, so you need to know parts and functions. You guys were really good at that. It won't take you long for you to refresh your memory on the parts of the cell and their functions. And I will tell you that the cell diagram is in the multiple choice. Okay? I won't tell you what kind. Okay? But you need to know the parts of the cell so that you can identify them, okay, from the picture. The picture is probably the best one that you will have seen all year long. It's super clear, okay? And the whole test is in color. Right, so everything will be really easy to discern. All right. All right. After parts of the cell. Okay. We did the cell anatomy lab. Okay. Have a look at that because some of the questions, including in the written response, okay, talk a little bit about some of the answers in the analysis, okay, of the cell anatomy lab. So have a look at that. Okay, cell size and function, that's surface area to volume ratios. Make sure you understand the role of that, the importance of that, because again, that goes back to cells carry out the basic functions of the organism. Okay, you had a question on the unit exam that had the picture of the Enterprise being attacked by the amoeba. Okay, it won't be obviously like that, but okay, it's important to understand the relationship. All right, number 6. So for number 6 here, guys, we're now moving on to the second part of the unit where we talked about multicellularity. Okay, mostly understand, okay, why it was an advantage and why it came along. Okay, and that goes right back to the thing before. Okay, being multicellular allows you to get big, okay, without having to battle the surface area to volume problem. Okay, a single cell can only get so big. Okay, multicellularity also allowed this thing to develop. Okay, true multicellularity. Right. Okay, specialization is important. Okay, plant structure, because that's where we went from there. We said, okay, there's specialization. That means some cells are designed to do certain jobs. So then we started looking at a plant as an example of a multicellular organism with specialization and specialized cells and tissue. Okay, so make sure you know plant structure, roots and leaves. Okay, that leaf diagram, know like palisade layer, spongy layer, stomates, guard cells, because all of those are examples of specialized cells that are carrying out basic functions and helping a multicellular organism to carry out its basic functions. Okay, so you'll need to know it kind of in that context. So parts, okay, and function, okay, of that. Okay, plant transport. We did a lab on that, so it's obviously going to be important. Okay, we need to know how that happens. Okay, we did a lab that proved, because we took the roots off, okay, proved that it was osmotic pulling forces and water's polar nature. Okay, so you may need to apply your knowledge there. I would say that reading over the analysis from the plant transport lab would be a very good idea, okay, in terms of that. Okay, as well as the lesson, of course, on plant transport. That would be a good one to read over. Okay, and then lastly, plant growth and adaptation. Okay, because this is sort of the pinnacle of a multicellular organism carrying out its basic functions. Being able to grow to maturity, adapt to its environment. Okay, and we showed examples of, okay, here's how a plant grows, but here's also some special things it can do in order to adapt to its environment. Okay, we talked about hormones and tropisms. Okay, many of those will accompany pictures on the final exam. Okay, being able to explain how any tropism happens. Do all the tropisms happen mechanically in the same way? They all happen obviously for different reasons, but do they mechanically happen the same way? Yeah, they do, right? It secrete auxins to one side of the plant, makes it grow because one side grows faster. Yeah. Okay, faster, so it gets longer, and that makes it curve. Okay, all tropisms happen the same way. Quickly review how that happens. Okay, so that you know, because again, that's adaptations allow a plant to continue to carry out its basic functions. All right, that would have been pretty much where we ended off the plant unit there, the bio unit. Okay, and that's where I'll end off today. Tomorrow I'll go over physics. Okay, we're not, guys, there's still a couple minutes left in class. I just don't have time to go over the physics unit, so I'm not going to. Okay, now, tomorrow, it won't take me long to go over the physics unit, but it is a short class because it's Friday tomorrow. All right, so be ready for, I'll go through physics quickly, and then if you've got questions, tomorrow's your day to ask. Okay, so look over that review sheet, and if you got something you want to ask, tomorrow's the day to ask. If you don't get a chance to ask tomorrow, or if something else comes up while you're studying, okay, you can see me on Monday or Tuesday here at school. Okay, I will be in the building. Just let me know if and when you are coming so that I can be here to help you. All right. Okay, any questions right now? I shouldn't see people packing up. You still got a couple minutes. Okay, so have that review package I gave you out. You know what? It's actually... Okay, question was, is there one unit that's weighted more than the others? Not really. There's one unit that's weighted less, and that's the last unit. Okay? If there's one unit that has less marks on it than the others, it's the last unit. But I would say the first three are pretty even. I would say there's probably between 32 and 36 marks in each of the first three units. Okay? Not nearly as many, probably 25. Okay? And a lot of those are multiple choice. So certainly there's a lot more. If I get a chance, I'll actually do the numbers, but it's certainly the first three are about equal, and the last one is less. Okay? It's a lot shorter, so it's bound to be less. All right. A lot of that stuff, though, guys, physics and chem are very much skill related, so make sure you practice those skills as a way to study. Okay, you got lots of worksheets and you got the review package I gave you, so use it.